Daily Focus back in my office, back in Michigan, and an absolutely beautiful day for December. And we're off to a great start, and I trust you are too. We're going to be in Revelation chapter 8. And all of these alliterations are straight out of the text, and that is that there is a silence. There is an amazing picture of prayer that's seen in the symbol there of the censer, and then there is this idea of worship that is seen specifically in the smoke. And so you have the silence, you have the servants, you have the smoke, but they're all just kind of teaching us a little bit about worship. Remember that worship is worthship. It is definitely rooted in demonstrating value. And so what we value, we tend to worship. What we value most, we worship most. And if you really want to see what you worship most, God says where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And so what you want to pursue with your money definitely reveals the passion of your heart and what you desire to worship. And so oftentimes we can step back and look at our calendar, look at our checkbook, and we can probably identify what it is we value most. And God is really trying to help us to understand in this 8th chapter that there is a design for worship. And in that design for worship, even in these tragic events in the tribulation period, God is going to teach us about worship. There is worship going on in heaven, but even in the midst of that worship, he is going to teach us some very specific things. And so let me read the text. I'm just going to read the first 5 verses. It says, "And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of a half hour." Now, I've heard it jokingly said that that's proof that there's not women in heaven. Now, I don't believe that. And it is a great joke. And it is a bit steered towards the females. But I will just admit there are some males who enjoy talking beyond anything I've ever seen in females. So that's a joke that has been given, but obviously has nothing to do with what the text is saying. What it is teaching us is that sometimes we need to stop talking and listen. And part of worship is just allowing God to speak. Part of worship is just listening to what God is saying. Part of worship is just watching and seeing what God is doing. Don't say anything. Don't speak. Just listen and watch. And that is the picture that we have, is sometimes in our worship, we need to stop telling God everything that we want. Stop telling God everything we're concerned about. Stop articulating to God what we desire. And just sit back and listen to what God has said and watch what God is doing. And that's part of worship, is showing the value in listening to what God is saying or what he has said. Watching his program unfold, or giving special attention to the promises that he has revealed, or the purposes that he is showing, or the plan of God that he is giving. That we're just going to step back and show that we see great value in what God is doing. And so that's part of what we see here at the beginning of this chapter, is that sometimes we just have to stop speaking. We need to sit back in worship and listen to God and watch what God is doing, and take a step back and take it all in. And so in this first step of him illustrating how do we show God the proper value and show him his worth, the first thing is just stop talking. Just sit back and listen to what God has said, what he is saying, what he is unfolding for us, and just watch it and look at it and try to take it in. That's part of worship. And then the second part, he says, and I saw 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And another angel, and this one's not really well defined. It actually may be almost like the Old Testament picture of the angel that's representing Christ. It could actually be representative that way. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. So here we see the servants gathering around the throne, and an angel is going to take the lead. And what do we see in this aspect of worship? And that is prayer. Prayer is an essential part of worship. It is our opportunity to praise God. It's our opportunity to adore God. It is our opportunity to submit to God. It's our opportunity to make our requests known to God. Prayer is this beautiful time of worship where we stand in awe of who God is, and we articulate our heart to him in submission and humility, knowing that God has never made a mistake, that he has it all under control, and he is going to do what's right. And so we can, in prayer, approach God knowing he knows exactly what is right. He's in control of organizing the events of the world right on time, according to his purpose and plan, and ultimately demonstrating the power of his person. And so we can stand in awe in our prayer time, coming into his very throne room to obtain grace and mercy in our time of need. And so the second part is the servants are teaching us the importance of prayer. And so he teaches us in worship, sometimes we just have to be silent. And sometimes as servants, we demonstrate dependence through our prayer time. And then he says in verse number 4, and the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. And the 7 angels, which had the 7 trumpets, prepared themselves to sound. So we have seen the seals. The 7th seal is the 7 trumpets. And now God is going to reveal the next chapter, the next layer, the next events in this great tribulation period. And he's going to unfold some things. But it's very interesting that this time starts with an evaluation of how are we worshiping God? How are we ascribing the value that we place on who God is, what he has designed, how he designed it, and are we willing to function within his design? Or do we want it our own way? Do we want to live life our own, according to our own purposes? Or do we want to fulfill God's purposes? Are we willing to live life within the guardrails of God's design? Or do we want to violate those rails by doing our own thing? Well, that's not worship at all. Worship is showing value to God. We do that by silently sitting in awe of who he is and listening to what he has to say and watching with observance what he is doing. And then it includes our articulation of praise and petitions to God, claiming the promises that he has given. And we see that in the servants in their prayer. And then in the smoke, we see that in that God is receiving all of that worship. He is adored in all of that worship, and he responds accordingly. He desires that people would follow his design, that he would see in us a submission to embrace what he has designed, what he decides, and that we stay dedicated to what it is that God reveals, so that he is the one who is glorified. And that is true worship. So today, as you go through your day, maybe today you need to start with just some silence and just stand in awe of who God is. Listen to what he's trying to say you through his spirit, by his word. And maybe just take some time to read and listen. Don't even say anything for a while. Maybe just reminisce as you've watched God work in your life, in your family, in your ministry, in the world, and you just want to stand in awe of his power, of his purposes, of his program, of his control over it. And then maybe there's some prayer that you want to start with adoration and let God know how much you love him, how much you're thankful for, and just spend some time in praise. And then maybe make your requests known and petition God on behalf of some concerns in your life. But as you do that, you come to this amazing reality that God is pleased that we worship the way he designed worship to go. And that sweet smelling savor that goes up to God as we worship him in spirit and in truth. I hope you have a great day. I'll look forward to seeing you again next week. God bless you.